drop. And yeah, it's looking to me like, well, I mean, if we just look at the day is down 4.35%. That is a big jump. If it gets to 7%, it doesn't happen very often, but if it gets to 7%, they'll shut down Wall Street. Now, given that given that trading is closing here, the markets are closing in about 3.5 hours. I don't think that we will see this get shut down today. But Monday morning, oh my goodness. I have seen it where it closes at a specific time, but then it opens at a very different location. So if anybody is in any leveraged positions, they're going to want to maybe just clear out of that for now because there is no telling what is going to happen Monday morning. But this here, coming back to August levels, I would be I would be I would be very surprised if we drop down below this. I'll be very surprised if we come back this year. Yeah, this is going to be this is something that a marker that we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for something like what happened at COVID right here. This was the beginning of 2020. This was February 25th. The infamous day where the stock market crashed and they had to shut down Wall Street to save it. And then, of course, throughout this time, as the markets have come back up and created new highs, the Dow Jones has never been $45,000 before December. This rally here, we expect to drop back likely to these levels here. This was COVID levels. Like before COVID, when it fell, this is probably where we're going to end up, around 29,000. So that's a big drop from where we are. Well, you know what? Let's count today. If we fall back down to these levels here, that'll be a 30% drop. Now, I don't think it'll happen right away, but Monday morning, we will know which direction we're headed. Based on how it opens and those first opening hours, we'll see where the liquidity is positioned. We'll see where people are trading. And of course, we'll get to see what the institutions intend on doing with the price. I anticipate that this is going to be a crippling blow to the US economy for a very deliberate purpose. In the same way that the stock market crash of 2020 was blamed on COVID, which ended up being a scam, I believe we're going to see something similar where there is going to be an invisible, an imaginary enemy that everybody must rally against. And I believe that given the pattern that the United States has followed for the past 100 years or more, that it will necessitate a declaration of war. As we can see already all over geopolitically, the tensions are insane. You can see countries where the president, even in Africa, Middle East, Europe, there are countries who are basically telling the US embassy to leave. That makes things tense geopolitically. So let's be ready for anything. I'm ready for it, but of course I've been able to prepare for this for a little while. But if anybody has questions, feel free, leave them in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and open up the microphone and let's talk about the implications of what we're witnessing today. 4.4. Now, right now, it's 4.44% drop in the Dow Jones. All right, let's go ahead and open up the lines. Go ahead, Maureen.
There. I was reading. I don't often read Jim Rickards. I signed up with him a long time ago, and I have a lifetime membership. But I did read this last night about a particular gold mine stock. He's expecting to skyrocket. Let me see if I wrote the name of it now.
Oh yeah. Let's check it out.
Oh gosh. Oh, wait. You know what? I just feel the fear. The fear is like I can just feel it. Oh, this morning I just felt it. Like,
Oh,
oh my
I
God, in my
know.
stomach. Whatever
Me
that is.
too.
Let's see what he says. Did you feel it? Yeah, it's like really. Oh, Kinross, Kinross, and it's gold, and it's its letters are KGC, and
Okay, let's
just
go check it out.
it's his take on the gold mine stock.
Ah, it's a Canadian company.
Oh,
Interesting. All right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. Good stuff. I do know that, I mean, whenever this occurs, the instant feedback. I'm gonna actually bring up the gold chart because it's interesting. Let's go. Uh, where's my gold chart? There it is. All right, so we actually have a dip in gold as well. Let me just
and
bring up the
silver
chart
too.
here. Yeah, and silver as well. This is indicative of people quickly realizing, oh my goodness, the stock market's crashing. I'm going to need cash.
Uh,
And so people are selling things off because we're at a high. We're definitely at a high. So this will be short-lived, especially if the American economy does end up suffering a blow. We will see this spin back, probably find support either at the 2900 level, possibly finding support at 2700 before rallying back upwards. Again, especially if that US dollar starts collapsing, which when we take a look at again history with Trump throwing tariffs around like they're going out of style, it's likely to have the same effect on the American economy that it did in 1929, right before the stock market crash that set off the dirty 30s. Similarly, I think this is going to be a wealth transfer, not so much a recession. And I've talked about this in the past. If you've followed me, even if you've followed me for a couple of years, you can look back at my Substack, mannownasppaul.substack.com, and there I talk extensively about the nature of this wealth transfer. And I believe what we're going to see is a very noble and probably knowing him, knowing Trump, it'll probably be an extravagant rescue mission. And given that the strategic reserve is incorporating cryptocurrencies, I believe what we will see is this transfer of the old commodities that have been backed by that US dollar for all this time. I believe we're going to see the transference go into the digital realm, where now AI and the creation of data is what backs the economy. So with gold, that will definitely increase its prices because gold is so widely used within electronics. And if we're going to be headed into another digital renaissance, similar to what we witnessed in the 90s, uh, we can expect to see the demand for gold go back up. So today, a little bit of a pullback on gold, and yes, also in silver, down a few bucks. Oh yeah, silver actually has suffered a lot more of a drop. Right now, sitting at a 13% drop yesterday and today. Gold is down only 3.69%. So, and that's typical. Whenever we see silver make moves, it usually is a lot larger of a move than gold. But that idea of well, if the fluctuation is more than 7%, they're going to shut down the stock market. That doesn't apply to gold. That only applies to the indexes like the US 30 or the S&P 500. But you can see here, like there is very little wick here. We have a very strong push. The bears are challenging those bulls heavily. Looks like we found some support. I would imagine that for the rest of the day, we'll see the trading volume drop out and likely maintain this level for the rest of the day. Again, Monday morning is going to be a very telling day. Yippers. So gold, that operation that you were sharing me with that Kinross, um, I'm pretty sure that's a good idea. We're going to see, especially if Monday we see the stock market continue to suffer the long-term effects of this monetary policy that's destructive. Uh, gold will be rallying for a while, especially as people put their faith more in that than they are the American economy.
Do you have some questions, Ron? No. So what's happening with China? That seems to be a big thing too. Like they're
Yeah, yeah. Well, China's
what are
in a
your
lot of
thoughts?
trouble. People don't realize China's in a deep, like we hear about how good China is, and the reason for that is because the propaganda machine needs us to look at China as a threat. But see, China is upside down as well. In fact, uh, China, uh, the last I saw, that their debt ratio was almost 2 to 1. So that's very, very high. To have a debt ratio, consumer debt ratio, greater than the GDP is not a good sign. And they're upside down. Everybody is upside down. One of the possibilities to consider is that, hey, Jennifer, one of the possibilities to consider is that in an effort to restabilize everything, many nations may be coming together to revalue their gold, which would then peg it to a whole new standard. It would basically say goodbye to the US dollar. We're not even considering it something to trade anymore. And in order for us to maintain international trade, we take a look at the contracts that are between Iran, Russia, China, to Saudi Arabia. All of those contracts look very different from how they did for the last 50 years. When we see the nature of those contracts, we recognize that they are looking to back, or rather, they're looking to peg gold and oil together based off of the amount of reserves that these nations have, which, by the way, since 2014, Iran has contributed $600 billion of infrastructure specifically for the distribution of oil between China and Russia and the Middle East. As a partner in that, they have already been taking payments in that $600 billion in gold. So this is a very pivotal moment where I believe we will see a revaluation of gold to a whole new standard. We've been on this US dollar for a long time, and 2 years ago, and it is 2 years and 2 months since the contract between the United States and Saudi Arabia expired. It just ran out. That's what happened in 2022. That's why Biden was chosen to be president for during that time, was because the dollar was being depegged from the petro. So so that now being done, all of these contracts look very different. And that's why Iran was viewed as the enemy for the last 15 years or so. It's because Iran was a strategic partner for the BRICS Bank and the partnerships that those nations have created for international banking. They knew, just like I did, that the US dollar was collapsing and that it was just a matter of time. And they've positioned themselves to have the upper hand and even dictate the economy going forward. So it'll be a fascinating unfolding, very fascinating unfolding. Any questions? Jennifer, how's it going?
It's good.
Have you met Maureen?
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
There we
And
are.
there's Audrey.
Yeah, Audrey.
My-
She's working on her flooring.
Yeah.
Oh.
But my question is, Paul, you said that you were ready and that you've been ready for a long time. So us folk who haven't been getting ready, what would it take us to be ready? Like how fast? What do we need to do? Kind of steps.
Well, that's a good question. The first thing that I would do is take a deep breath. And remember that all of this is just a video game we get to play together. And we learn lots of lessons throughout this process. The second thing that you can do is recognize that this is going to be a transitional period. We are going to see the American economy come back one way or the other. And it will be either because America goes to war or America abolishes the Federal Reserve. There's really the only two options they have if they want to make it better. The two options are, if it goes to war, it's going to create a lot of stress economically, just from a perspective of where the money's going. You know, we remember Stargate, the project Stargate that Trump announced right after his election. That's a $500 billion project. $500 billion to develop AI to compete on the international stage in the digital revolution. I believe that what we're going to see over the next little while, and this is confirmed. I was talking about this with the Dragon Riders earlier this week. The energies of this week in particular match up perfectly with conflict, and things are going to move fast because it is all this here. What we're seeing today is the catalyst, similar to the catalyst that we noticed in February of 2020. And that catalyst will create massive transition from this old monetary system into a new one. And the process will take a few years. What I would do for people who are currently invested in the stock market and experiencing these losses today, I would just cut them out. You're better off right now waiting to see what's going to happen. So if you have to sell some stuff off, move it quickly. And I would put it into gold as quickly as possible. If you want to hold out, because maybe you're fine, maybe you've been planning for this, you could potentially just wait it out and see where things go. I think that within a next couple of months, is similar to what we saw after COVID. In the next couple of months, we're going to see similar price action to what we saw after COVID. This is COVID here. COVID, when it fell, let's zoom back a little bit here. COVID, when it fell, it came back down to levels from 1,200 days prior, 2016. So that drop all occurred in a period of a week. And then it only took Trump 232 days to bring it back. That was before he was even done his term. So this here is something that we can expect over the next 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. This rally here is going to be the money that comes in to win the war. And that war, I believe, is going to be related to AI. It's going to be related to this new weapon. Now, of course, whenever we see a war, whenever it's published, whenever it's something that we see in the news, I got to be honest, folks, you have to recognize that war, that part, those weapons that we see, those are the ones that are obsolete. Whenever we see war, it's nations basically offloading all of the old tech and just throwing it at their enemy. So this is not going to be any different. Recognize that this is going to be a fabricated crisis, no different than COVID, with the intent of bringing people closer to a digital ID. If they can make things really nasty for people, but then have cryptos start to take off, you can bet your boots they're going to be offering cryptos in exchange for dollars, saying, hey, one of these coins backed by Project, what's it called? Stargate. Backed by Project Stargate, we've got this new currency. It's going to save the economy. One of them is going to pay off 40 of your old ones because look at how terrible inflation is. You see, people need to be given a reason to go through this transition. So things are going to be recovering over the next few months. And you'll likely be back where you were 3 days ago. Or even you'll likely be back at those all-time highs by the end of the year. Again, this is a transition. It's not a recession. It's simply transferring asset classes from one type of commodity into another. The commodity of human resources, which is just time, to digital resources, which is just data. And that transference will save the American economy. Now, again, the other option is that Trump's a good guy. And he abolishes the Federal Reserve. That will also save the American economy. It will be chaos. And it would also be unheard of because governments don't take responsibility for their problems. So those are basically the two ways. Yeah, Maureen, go ahead.
When you say abolish the Federal Reserve, I don't know what that means. I mean, I kind of dismantle it and make it not relevant, but I don't know what that would mean to me.
Yeah, well, what it means is it would mean unrest because the Federal Reserve has been the private corporation, by the way. It's not a government corporation at all. It's a private corporation that contracts to the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., for the handling of their liquidity. And it all started when they were offering loans to America. Oh, you're having a little bit of hard time keeping up with your silverbacks? Because that's what they were. They were silver dollars. They even said it on the note, on the currency. It said $1 silver. And at the time in America, you could take that note, go to any bank and demand a silver coin, an ounce of silver, and you could get it because the money was backed by it. Well, when the Federal Reserve came into play, it started leveraging the American economy. It started leveraging that silver against the people. So what we've seen through this period of time is just the manipulation of the prices of these metals that would back the currency, and also the inflation of the dollar by printing it into oblivion. Between the two of those strategies, right now, the American economy is not based on anything. So if the Federal Reserve were to be abolished, the Republic, not Washington, D.C., because that's not a republic, the Republic would, by default, revert back to the silverback. Because that's what's law. Everything that's been occurring ever since has just been what the people have most likely under fraud have elected people to make this choice.
In and out.
Oh, am I cutting in and out? Jennifer, am I cutting in and out? No.
For me you are. For me you are, but not for you, Jennifer. Okay. So it's just us.
Might be just the connection there. Did you catch what I said? What did I miss? What do I need to go back and repeat? Oh, unmute.
Just the whole thing about what the silver, I remember having a silver certificate.
Oh, yeah.
A $20 silver certificate that was a bill. It was a $20
Yep.
bill, and it was a silver certificate. It said at the bottom, silver certificate.
Yeah.
And that was in the late 50s, early 60s that I found
Yeah.
that bill. And so for just the general public, if the Federal Reserve is dismantled, then we would go back to a silver-based economy. Is that correct? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when things default, imagine like when things default, they just go back to how they were. It's similar to, when we watch movies and there's an evil sorcerer, and once you take out the evil sorcerer, all of the evil spells that he's cast get undone. It's a similar effect. All of those things that the Federal Reserve has done, all of the legal fiction that was built around the use of that fraudulent product, the US dollar,
Yeah.
which wasn't backed by anything other than the belief that it existed. Once that disappears, once that sorcerer got his head cut off, then everything goes back to the way the law specifies the commerce needs to be done as it was before the Federal Reserve, which was the silverback. So it just goes to default, just returns back to how it was supposed to be from the beginning.
So when you were saying that the dollar now is backed by debt, no, go ahead, Jennifer, if you had something more.
No, go ahead, finish your.
It's okay. Oh, it's just, I remember you saying that it went from, a positive, the dollar was positive backed by silver and gold, and then now it's backed by debt. And I'm not quite sure what that means, and if it's relevant. It may not be something I need to understand.
It's a great question. The way to think of it is that silver note that used to be the case, where it was said $1 silver dollar at the bottom of the US dollar, that was an IOU. It wasn't money. It was just an IOU. You could exchange it for money. But see, today, with the way the Federal Reserve, and this isn't just the Federal Reserve, it's every one of these banking systems that subscribe to the same protocols. They take your money and they fractionally reserve it. So meaning they'll take $100 of yours and they'll lend out 90. And then when that $90 gets deposited into the borrower's account, that also gets fractionally reserved and lent out 90% of it, and 90% of the next one, and 90% of the next one. And in fact, today, the over-leveraged dollar through this fractional reserve banking is estimated to have contributed to over $800 quadrillion of fraudulent money, meaning IOUs that have no capacity of ever being fulfilled. $800 quadrillion worldwide.
When it crashes.
This is biblical, guys. Like, this is biblical what's happening right now, I think. Being ready for this, you simply have to recognize the transition that this is. See, if you see it as a recession like the media has programmed us to believe it to be, we will get caught up in fear. And from fear, we will make really... When was the last time you made a good choice from a state of fear? Tell me. Because if you can figure out how to do that, I would like some tips.
Well, it is what you said, which is to breathe, to pause, to go to the full brain, and to know you can do it.
That's
you
right.
can do that. That's the gift of being human. So, yeah. Anyway, Jennifer, you had a question, but I let me just ask, because Audrey was talking about to be prepared, and I think first is a mindset. The mindset has to make this transition, like you were saying. what is this? And then from that, when you see what it is, financially, how do you maneuver yourself? You know, because you're prepared not only with a mindset, but with a financial situation that has followed the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing, at least from what I'm hearing from Audrey, because I know I'm feeling it, is like, oh, okay, now what do I do? You know, now
Right.
where do I stand, and what do I rely on, and where
Yeah.
do I see this transition? Am I walking across this bridge where I'm going to be doing certain things and then reach another place? And, you know, maybe that's not something that can be answered until we know the direction that, you know, that everything's going. Maybe, I have no idea, but
We
that's
are
kind of,
explorers. We are explorers right now. This is an uncharted territory. We've never seen financial fraud to this degree ever. So this is brand new territory for all of us. The horizons will expand as you reach them. Jennifer, your turn.
wait. There, go ahead.
It just reminds me again of the tulip experiment in the Netherlands way back when.
Yeah, the tulip
Yeah.
fever. That is exactly how it's done every single time. They did it the same thing in the 20s. Throughout the 20s, they over leveraged their positions and they pulled the rug out from all the investors, all of the people. It's the same thing all over again. And again, it's a transition. The money doesn't disappear. It just goes from one asset class into another. And when you know what that asset class is, you automatically will see positions to take. You'll automatically see the opportunities to seize. Because especially as we go through the transition, they're just going to pop up like daisies all over the place, or tulips.
California poppies.
Yeah. All right, Jennifer, now it's your turn.
Before I ask what I was going to ask, I just wanted to say, you know, like we're saying, they've done this before. We've seen this happening, you know, it's the same pattern over and over, right? Which is true, you know, the 20s, you know, depression, and
Yep.
who knows how many times before that. But I think actually this time is different. I think we're in totally uncharted territory. And the reason why is because we're going to stop being slaves.
Yes.
We're going to get out of the pattern, right? So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I think we can have some ideas about what we think it's going to look like on the other side, but I don't know. Something tells me we're going to be totally surprised about what
Yeah.
it's actually going to look like, which I think it sucks because you want to know what's going to happen. So you know what to do now to prepare for later. But
Yeah.
I kind of think we can't do that this time. We just have to kind of go more day by day, which is kind of scary and is kind of exciting all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Jennifer,
It is.
it feels like we're changing anchors from the anchor of the physical economy and knowing what's going to happen there, the outer source, to the inner source.
Yeah, absolutely.
To really sense in, and like Paul, you're saying that things are going to pop up and you have to be awake to that.
Yeah. But there's no pre-planning in this place that we're in right now. We want to, because that's what we know, and that's what we've done in the past to keep ourselves safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think there is pre-planning. We're here, opening to new possibilities, sharing with somebody who, you know, I mean, Paul, especially you, especially at this format, knowing what the horizon looks like. There are clues, and it's like crypto is one of them, but not to hang on to it like the old way we did, as if that will be it forever. You know,
Right.
It's not the thing that's going to save us.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
It might help us on our journey.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, to change that mindset. And I think that's kind of, I'm getting it now, that that's the transition, is the transition is looking at a bigger picture, at looking at sensing it from within. And of course it's like, yeah, you can go to France, but if you don't know the language, you're not going to, you're going to have a difficult time. Let me put it that way. I mean,
Right.
yes, you can
Yeah.
sense, but you still need to know the tool, the language tool or the word tool or the concept or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I appreciate this conversation, just looking around and inside, like, oh, well, what is it that's coming? And Paul, I think you do have your finger on the pulse of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yes. That's been my intention this whole time, is be able to help guide people towards this mindset, because we don't know what's going to happen in the end. All I know is how it's happened in the past. And I believe that being humans, especially when you take a look at the vibrational level that politicians are at, you can get a pretty good idea of what they're going to do based off of the patterns that they've held in the past. So, what they do and the outcome of what they do, those are two different things. Who knows? I mean, they could abolish the Fed, but that might actually make America really, really tank, because there isn't anything anymore, not even something for people to believe in. That would definitely do a lot of things. I have no idea. No idea. All I know is that really, really good at finding opportunities when there is a crisis. And the opportunity isn't, like what the government does is that they look for the crisis to profit. But we see crises as catalysts for building community, for building high trust relationships in our local areas, for redefining how do we do business. All of these things are going to be a natural byproduct of this transition. And yeah, I'm ready. I'm definitely, and I know everybody here is, from that perspective. Everybody here is ready.
So what I see, the main thing is don't panic.
Yep.
That's the mindset. Don't panic. Right?
Yes.
Mhm.
What we have right now is what we need. Right?
Yep.
And then just keep an eye out for the opportunities. Those are the only two things that I can see. So
Yep. Love it.
And Paul, I know that I am looking at you to have my eyes for opportunity, because
Yeah.
I don't have the eyes for that yet. They're embryo eyes.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is I don't have eyes where you are.
Yeah.
So by listening to what I have to share and the things that I am seeing, because yeah, I go down 20 rabbit holes a day finding out what developments are coming forward, what new technologies are available. This whole AI thing, it's a bubble and it's going to pop, no different than the tulip fever, no different than any other, the .com bubble. We're going to see that too. And the reason why is because I keep track of how these computer chips are being built. And nobody has a computer chip manufacturing plant capable of creating the chips that AI would need to accomplish anything that they're selling it can do. So we've got a couple of years yet before AI is even actually doing the things that everybody's scared of it doing. And between now and then, we're also developing other technologies using similar practices to increase our personal security, to make sure that, hey, you know what, communities now have the ability to isolate their own treasury from the rest of the monetary system, and they can back that treasury off of the goods and services and good old fashioned eyeballs and handshake type business. That right there is what builds an economy. Well, now any community can go ahead and do that. Get started tonight, right? That's possible. It's about people's awareness of what's possible just needs to reach the horizon. That's all. And I think that this will be a catalyst for that. Similar, look at how many people, before COVID, man, I couldn't get a friend if my life depended on it because of the way that I thought. Since COVID, I met everybody else that had a hard time meeting up with people beforehand and making friendships because we were similarly minded. And the catalyst to bring us together was COVID. Imagine what this is going to do.
It's great. So the question I was going to ask you, Paul, is I know you've been listening to some of the Oracle Girl tracks, and I don't know which one it was, but there's one where she talked about the tablets of destiny. If you
I didn't hear that one.
Okay,
I don't know.
have to find out which one that is because she talks about she's talking about the tablets of destiny and the relationship that the people had with those tablets got transferred basically to gold. Gold was the closest thing that they had to these tablets of destiny that were stolen. And that's how gold first became a valuable substance or whatever.
Yeah.
And became this, thing that we use to transact with, which I thought was really interesting. And I was curious if you had listened to it and what you thought of it. So I'll have to find that one and let you know which one that is.
Oh, let me know too. I don't.
When you talk of it, yeah, when you're mentioning it the way that you do, I'm reminded of the notion that gold will also not keep its value. That over the next couple of years, probably just simply because it's what we know, right? As the mentality and paradigms shift over into that new monetary system that's backed by data, that once that transition occurs, I think people are going to realize, oh, wait a second, the economy is not backed by natural resources at all. The economy is actually backed by the goods and services being traded at the local level. That is the backing of an economy. Well, that's worth more than gold and silver. Why? Because a lot of good amount of gold is going to do if I can't find someone that can sell me a cow. If I can't find someone that grows eggs. If I can't find someone that knows how to generate alternative means of heat, Go ahead, Maureen.
We have eggs, Paul.
Good stuff. I will order 2 dozen. Put me on auto ship 2 dozen every week.
$5 today.
Yeah.
They're producing right now. This is the time.
Wait a second. $5 US? Because if I look at the chart, no, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And what I've noticed for myself that's been happening in my neighborhood, in our life right here where we live, is that there's an increased of friendliness that's happening with people that are walking down the street. And just this natural kind of community sense of, oh, hi, how, the guy's walking his son to school every day. And then his little story about how that happened, how he fought to have it happen and blah, blah. And just all of the little human stories that are walking down and
Oh, Maureen, you cut out. Sorry.
Just got frozen.
Yep. Yeah, those stories though, I feel what she's talking about. I mean, I grew up waving at people on a two-lane highway. You'd just be driving along on a highway, rural, but you'd wave at the guy that's driving the other direction. Like, that's how we used to be. I remember growing up, you'd just walk down the street and knock on a few doors and you could get a hockey game going, that hasn't happened for so long. And you're absolutely right, Maureen. The reason why you're noticing that community, that sense of community, is because what COVID did became a catalyst for us building community. Because what was the first thing we had to do when COVID came out?
Stay away from
Shelter in
each other.
place. Yep. Don't gather. Don't, no, you're not allowed to build community. You're not allowed. Man, they were shutting down the bars at 10 o'clock at night. That's where revolutions start, by the way, is at the pubs, right? So, of course, they were stopping us from getting together, right? Well, that created isolation. That social distancing created a friction between what we saw ourselves capable of doing, being, and having, and what we were experiencing. And that friction got to the point now where it's like we connect with someone and instantly we feel different.
Just raise your hand. Raise your hand.
The overwhelming fear I have about our economy as it is today is a basic observation about grocery stores, supermarkets, and there's a fact floating out there for quite a while, is that if the trucks stopped coming, those shelves are going to be empty. We have in LA County alone, there's 15 million people who depend on those supermarket groceries. My fear is what's going to happen to the population when they can't feed themselves. They have no resources to do it. They are totally dependent on those trucks delivering product.
Yeah.
That's my big fear. What's going to happen to our civility at that time?
Well, we do know that
the war that I worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's we see patterns in history as well with that. You know, if the stores get emptied, it's about 48 hours before civil unrest.
Yeah.
Right? So we know that that's a very real thing. And I think that we're going to see that. But I also think that there's going to be a swift response either from the communities, because the fact of the matter is there is more than enough food. We simply have been conditioned to look for it from one place. I can remember early on in my work helping people learn about gold and silver. I was doing a speaking engagement in 2017. And afterwards, someone came up and talked to me and was asking me a bunch of questions. And I could tell that they just weren't getting what I was trying to teach them. And so that I asked them, I said, well, where do you get your food from? And they said, well, the supermarket.
Right.
Because that's the mentality. Yes, there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to know, where do I get my food from? Because for them, food comes from the supermarket, like you said. But there is more than enough. And it's simply a matter of networking our communities, maybe not even extensively, but just find 2 or 3 people that are within driving distance, that have food, that have those things, and you just start networking with those people. Because if people come to you and they're upset because their grocery stores are empty and they've got weapons to take food from you, you'll want to be able to have that good relationship with the farmers so that now there can be an exchange. There's a more peaceful outcome that can occur. Again, that takes a different mindset. We need to find that sense of community and that sense of trust and belonging with each other. Yeah, it's a very real thing, and I'm with you. I do not look forward to the scenery that we're going to witness as a result. We also have to remember that most of the things that we see. Sorry?
Yeah. Well, I always try to find the humor in all of this. And when I play golf, I do that once a week, maybe twice a week. And I see all these Canadian geese.
Oh, yeah.
On the fairways. And I said, there's my food supply. I'll come out at night with a net and grab a couple of people for dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
See, up in Canada, they don't treat us like that. See, they must like Americans, because when they're up here, we call them murder chickens. They are vicious. Oh yeah,
They are.
You have their babies up here. That's why they're vicious.
that's why they're vicious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Astrologically, that whole thing of the Neptune just going into Aries, I think I've said this before, and when the last time it was in Aries was in 1861, which was the beginning of the Civil War. And I can see that as a logical extension, Ron, what you're saying, of being the Civil War of the have and the have-nots. And, just being a different kind of a scenario. And I noticed there's also a rise of farmers markets around here, and building that relationship, because certainly we aren't, if somebody wants food from us, they can have it, I mean.
Yeah.
But that whole thing of the preppers being armed, to kill people, I'm saying, please, God, that's not something. What's worth that? Here we've got the chickens. They're complaining in the background. They're laying eggs, is what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
But I think building relationships with farmer markets, I think you've mentioned that before, and that being a really good thing to do now. And also getting, I've always had like rice and beans and all that kind of thing. But of course, if somebody wants it, I'm not going to stand in their way. They're hungry, they want it. But, we could say, hey, let's do something that's more permanent, and let's come here and farm here with us, offer that, I get it that you're hungry. Let's do it.
Yeah. And you bring up a powerful message. Our role, I believe we've talked about this, how we have the midwife's gift to help Earth through this.
Yeah.
Right? That what you're doing when you speak like that to them, what you're doing is that you're helping them see there's no recession. It's just a transition. We're just moving from one thing into another. And instead of going to the supermarket, now you can come out to the farms.
Yeah.
And most of them, especially the ones that are really organized, they'd be happy to exchange food for labor. That happens a lot during these periods because there's a demand for the food. There's a demand for help to bring the food out of the ground. And this is a beautiful time where the opportunities to prosper are going to be most naturally back with community.
I can't get people to come and farm. We have beds, empty beds. And I say, would you like to come and you can use the beds for free water? And I don't get any takers. I think that's part of my reluctance to, I have my own, that's not manifesting, something standing in the way, some speed bump or something. I don't know.
Right.
So, but the timing, it's all about timing and doing it. But we're ready, and we're growing a lot of moringa trees. I don't know if you know anything about moringa, but that's a superfood. So where are you, Jennifer?
Oh, you're muted, Jennifer.
Sorry, I'm actually same location somewhat as Paul, Alberta, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fun times here in Canada these days. Oh man,
What was that?
Be an interesting one.
Oh yeah.
I have one of these.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the little what is it called? I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a EMF. I don't know if that's what you're wearing, Jen.
That's what mine is. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Talk about like mind, and then we all going,
absolutely. Yeah. We're in the same club.
I don't know where mine went, but I've got some shungite that's really nice. Shungite wards off negative energy, right?
Yeah.
Look at this guy. I got this one.
Woo!
That's a gooder.
So
Awesome.
those are some of the ways that we can start thinking, and I think start developing, like farmers markets, just opening the door to being more communal in nature, and just seeding that ourselves, in
Yeah.
the sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's see
The
what else.
reason why some people may experience the fear is because they don't have a set of beliefs or a paradigm structure that allows them to see the opportunities even when they're right in front of them.
It's terrifying, right? To people,
It is.
or it will be.
Yep. Yep. Totally. And we have that opportunity to be the light. We have that opportunity to be a beacon of hope where people are going to be running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and we're going to be standing there poised. We're going to have
You
a
know what to
posture
do.
even. Yeah.
We
It's
know what
like,
to do. Like,
yeah.
I just noticed that the older I get, it feels like the myelin sheath is like disintegrating, around who I am and how much load I can take. So
Yeah.
I do feel that as you get older, and I just think, oh, I'm not going to make it if it's too survival oriented and people are running around. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't go there. I mean, I can just say, that's not my cup of tea. I just like I would be offering, hey, why don't you sit down? We'll have a cup of tea. Let's talk about this.
Well, in many ways, because
together,
we have to also remember that in 2012 is where the timelines split, right? Where there's literally two realities running parallel to each other right now. And in many ways, you'll be invisible to people who are in that other world. We talked about that earlier this week. You're going to be invisible to them. They will simply not be able to perceive you simply because their belief structure doesn't support your existence.
yeah.
So, in many ways, you'll be kind of like in the background watching it all unfold, and no one's going to be coming after you because you're outside of that realm, essentially. You are in a different one. Now, I get it. There are still risks. Don't, lock your doors and all that good stuff that you need to do. But recognize that where you are vibrationally is different from where they are.
Yeah.
And we're going to experience life in two diametrically opposed ways.
We're already seeing that, right? We're already seeing it.
Yeah. I just remembered about fiat currency and all that. During the Vietnam War, I was part of that theater in the Mekong River Delta, and no one was allowed to do any transactions with US dollars. You had to convert it to military script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And when you got your
another
paycheck,
IOU.
when you got your paycheck, I was married at the time. She would get, I would take, whatever, $30, whatever I needed when I'm in the theater there, but in script. And she, back in LA, would have all the money in cash.
Yep.
So you get the thing about the transfer of wealth there, of how to get to a different currency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fascinating part of that is that there's always a conundrum in the theater of operations when you see the Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese using American artillery, ammunition, and arms. And what was happening in Saigon, for instance, a lot of the weapons were being sold to the very forces that we were fighting, to the point where the Army chief of the Army Master Sergeant of the U.S. Army was brought to charges, and I don't know how much it was, but he was brought up on charges of doing exactly that.
Wow.
Money and greed.
Yeah.
Greed, right? Greed.
Well, yeah,
Fear and greed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
You've lived through that.
yeah, and I said, okay, this is worth a can of beer. This one, your beer ration, script or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
All this is being purified. Isn't that nice?
yeah, it's like I didn't quite. I still am confused about, but what you're pointing to is that at its heart, it seems like any fiat currency, or be it Bitcoin or whatever, gold is fiat currency at the bottom line also. But what really gives it the value is the product, is the resources that you produce, the
That's what he's
food,
saying. Yeah.
and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you can prevent famine and have people live with proper, with good health care or whatever that's in our day and age. In the past, there was practically nothing for health. Um, so, it's like, well, maybe the Federal Reserve needs to stay in place to
Mm-hmm.
provide, to be the middleman for all this gross national product figures.
Yep.
Yeah. Compared to
Yeah.
other countries that don't have it. I don't know. Something's going to sift out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. It's going to be fascinating to watch it all unfold for me, because knowing how it's been done in the past, the differences are going to be interesting, because there's going to have to be some differences in some way, shape, or form, simply because the way people think is certainly different today. Like, we take a look at the rest of the world and how much other nations are helping their citizenry actually establish property rights over their wealth. Ooh, that is going to shift the consciousness of everyone around the world.
Yeah.
And it will necessitate pivots on part of the politicians and parliamentarians that are involved in these policies. They're going to have to make adjustments, because they simply will be made irrelevant if they don't.
It's like the truth is getting out. They can't keep it under wraps for any longer. And little piece pockets here and there, and people are going to hear about that, right? And then be like, well, I want that. That's right.
Yep.
And yeah, good luck.
It's the 100th monkey kind of thing.
Yeah.
The evolution, that's really, if we look back in history, we see the evolution as it occurs, that the leaps in consciousness and how that changes the world in one way or another, and then the disillusionment of it. Well, the Indians, the Asian philosophy always has that, the great destructions and the great, building up, the evolution of the edification.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So this great, the movement of the stock market and the portending of, like what you were saying, and the shock that is resonating to me in the system now, that is being purified. And because, Oracle Girl, that's her thing, is that's what we do naturally.
Mm-hmm.
We just the only thing that stops that is getting in the way. Well, that never is stopped, but
Right.
our awareness of it, is stopped by getting in the way, by focusing on something else. Anyway. How do you see that, Paul, as the general, this being uplifting in terms of like what Audrey, is that her name, Audrey? I know she's not here anymore, but she did say, you're in a position, you're ready. You say you're ready, and we're Ron and I anyway. Maybe Jennifer's ready. I do have Oracle Girl to have a reference to resonate with.
Yeah.
And the sense of community of that, I think, is at a higher level of consciousness, even with Doc Hawkins, just to be able to see patterns And that's a higher level of consciousness right there. When you can't see, you're just so locked into the pattern, you can't see anything.
Yep. Yeah. What goes
So
on
to know that it's
undistinguished.
there, to know the pattern. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And it takes a certain level of consciousness, but the way to get to that level is for somebody to point it out to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is the pattern that's happening, you know, and then you can start to see the pattern. And that's kind of what I feel like you're doing, is that giving me this, oh, here's the pattern, see how it's operating. But yet it could come back to this level too. You know, you don't know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what direction the pattern's going, or you can predict somewhat. But that's at a certain level of consciousness, isn't it? The world is at a certain level of consciousness. The pattern of that. And the pattern to emerge is unity consciousness. I mean, and just the step of community and all that.
And it only makes sense that we would gravitate towards that because the pendulum's been swinging the other way for quite some time. And this is what this time is about. For the way I see it, it is a remembering who we are.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to close things off. Maureen, you and I, we're on here in like 15 minutes, eh? Or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do the wallet thing. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Look at that. Bye, Jennifer. Nice seeing you again. And I do remember you now. Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye, Audrey. Have fun with the flooring.
I will.
So we're doing that too. We're looking at flooring too. So I know the conundrum. We did find the right one, and it just made itself known. It was really wonderful. It was like we were looking at all, and none of it was just right. And then all of a sudden, you know, what is that? The Goldilocks phenomena. This is the right one.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Oh,
This is kind of what it looks like. Oh, everybody's
hi,
gone.
dog. Hi there, dog.
Man,
Wow,
you got lots done.
Where is it?
You just did it. You did it. You already did it.
I did part.
I've
done about.
You're doing
so
it yourself. You're amazing. You're amazing, girl. Good
Thank
for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was one corner going into the bedroom. That was the amazing one because it was like a triangle. But I did
like
it.
The variation. I like the variation of color. It lightens it up.
I love it. I love it. So
yeah.
All right. Take care. I'm back to flooring.
You betcha.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we'll see you in like